Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to Owning Authenticity with Carly Wharton. Very excited today to be jumping into an Earth energy deep dive where we will look at the three Earth energy signs of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn and get into why Earth energy is so darn important if we want to do basically anything in this life. Before we get into Earth energy specifically, I do want to introduce two terms, just in case anybody listening is a true beginner. I want to define archetypes and evolutionary astrology. So before we get into it, let's spend just a little bit of time unpacking what are archetypes. So as we talk about the Earth energy family, we're really talking about a set of 9 archetypes. There are the signs themselves, the Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn archetypes. There are the house archetypes. There are the planet archetypes. And the best way I can describe it is archetypes are like facets of a diamond. So you can picture a perfectly cut diamond that's sparkling and brilliant, or you can picture an uncut diamond, a completely raw diamond, is probably a little bit more accurate when we're talking about human beings, is that some sides are really long, some sides are short and bumpy. Every facet has its own characteristics, and yet the diamond is made up of all of them. A diamond, by its own physicality, can't just have one facet. It's a three-dimensional object. It automatically has multiple facets to it, and understanding each of those facets and learning to love each of our facets is part of the process of unpacking our natal chart. And that is the goal when we study these archetypes or these different facets to our human selves. We're trying to find the good in it, is how I'll say that. And there's also a unity that comes from studying archetypes, because archetypes exist as a structure for the human psyche. So basically, like, they are inherent inside all humans. There are very few exceptions to that. So if we can find these universal human needs and behaviors and look at it that way, where we can literally find common ground with any other person on this planet. It's work that studying archetypes is work that brings us together rather than divides us, which personally I really, really love that about it. And finding the good in ourselves is kind of the whole point of evolutionary astrology. So when we talk about astrological perspectives in general, there are a million, maybe not that many, but there are a lot of different schools of thought out there. There are people using astrology as a basic construct, using it for very different reasons. And so evolutionary astrology is just one way of looking at it. By no means am I saying this is the most valid or the only one that matters, but I am saying that for me personally, it really resonates and lands on a lot of my own values. Things like finding the good in ourselves. And evolutionary astrology is basically centered on the idea that we are here for a reason, that we chose our birth time to suit our soul's mission. And we chose our entry point under the planetary configuration that was there for a reason. We knew what our mission was, and we stacked the deck in our favor. We put the perfect tools in our toolbox so that we could come forward and do what we intended to do. Evolutionary astrology sings all those songs, and so do I. So I'm right there with it. It also assumes that every piece of our natal chart is perfect. Every single planet and sign and house combo that we have in our natal chart, every aspect, hard or positive, whatever it is, it was perfectly placed for your unique evolutionary purposes. Um, and so finding the reason, finding the good, and understanding how each placement serves our highest good and our intentions for evolving in this lifetime. Sometimes we feel like we stand in our own way, but sometimes I think it's like we clipped our wings on purpose so that we could explore the ground, because our mission and our purpose is on the ground. So we didn't want ourselves to be flying around all the time and missing out on the real reason that we're here. So instead of feeling like we're missing out on flying because our wings are clipped, it's about finding the joy in where you are and trusting that maybe you put yourself there on purpose. So that's really the viewpoint of evolutionary astrology. It takes the victim mindset completely away. There's no more, oh yeah, I have all these hard things in my chart and you should feel sorry for me. It's, I chose this path because it holds the wisdom that I came here for. And chances are, if you wanted wisdom, it's going to be hard. So, yeah, sometimes our soul bites off more than we can physically chew, sets us up with a really difficult path, aiming for a lot of wisdom to be generated. And the human reality of actually having to live that might be pretty difficult. I'm not saying that might not be the case, but our soul still had a reason. So that is where my heart and evolutionary astrology overlap a really big chunk. It does work centered in the idea of reincarnation and our soul's eternal journey of evolution, and the idea that each human incarnation that our soul makes, or really any incarnation of any kind for any creature, that we had an evolutionary intent for taking on that life and living out that life experience. We had a reason. And so our natal chart, through the lens of evolutionary astrology, aims to unpack that reason. Why are you here? If you're listening right now, you have a reason. We all do. We're physical. We clearly had a reason for coming forward. And, you know, personally, that belief being rooted at the center of everything, that like there's a reason I came, there's a reason I chose the energy that I have, there's a reason that I chose the family that I came through. There's a reason for all of it. I need to believe that, because without that reason, I don't necessarily want to be here. You know, if it's really random and it's really all just for pain, I think I'll just check out and call it a day, if you don't mind. And so the finding the reason in life kind of saved my life. And that's where I feel like evolutionary astrology is basically laid out just like that. It's aiming at why you chose the placements that you did and how is that serving your highest good. So my favorite evolutionary astrologer that I know of so far is Steven Forrest. You can find him and his work at stephenforrestastrology.com. And lately, I have been working my way through his Element series. So he has published 4 books in that series: the Book of Water, Earth, Air, and Fire. And this, obviously, since it's an Earth energy deep dive, I have basically used the ideas and structures and evolutionary perspective that Stephen Forrest built into the Book of Earth. And through that, we are going to look at the 3 Earth signs, the planets that rule them, and the houses that they're associated with. But before I get into kind of dividing out all of that, I wanted to spend a little bit of time, and this is something that he explains in a way that just makes total sense to me, the difference between planets, signs, and houses. There are, and this is, you know, quoting out of memory almost verbatims to Mr. Stephen Forrest, thank you for your work. Um, but there are a lot of astrologers out there who basically use these things interchangeably. Like, you'll find videos where it's like your moon in Taurus slash the second house. And you're to be able to understand that those things are basically interchangeable. And he puts forward that they're really not. that as far as like archetypes and different facets of the diamond, they're different things. They have a lot in common, and that's why they're associated with each other. But when you understand the archetypes themselves, they serve different purposes all within kind of the same story. So the analogy that he uses is starting with planets. So right now there's like 9 things, 8 or 9 things that are considered planets, and plus the sun, plus the moon, and those are kind of the main things in the natal chart. And that the planets are like different kinds of meat. So there's fish, there's pork, there's chicken, there's beef, there's goat, there's bison, there's all kinds of different meat out there, and each of those kinds of meat has its own set of properties. So the planets and their archetypes are a lot like that. They're these different kinds of meat. Now let's use the example of ground beef. If you take ground beef and you season it with taco seasoning and you make it into taco meat, that when you're eating it tastes very different than the ground beef that you turned into a meatloaf and baked in the oven, all as one big hunk of meatloaf. Those two experiences of consuming ground beef, smelling it, tasting it, looking at it, all of those experiences of that ground beef, they now have different properties, even though it's all ground beef. What's up with that? That flavoring, it makes a difference. The packaging process, it makes a difference. And that's where the zodiac signs come from. So we all have each planet in a certain sign in our natal chart. And the sign that the planet is adding the seasoning, is doing the preparations of that planet's personality. So the planet itself provides a certain structure, and the sign that it's in adds flavor. And with that flavor, it changes our perception of that person's sign or that person's energy around that planet. So that's how the planets and the signs are working. The signs are flavoring the planets. And then the houses are behaviors. So the example is mm, the 10th house is jumping to mind, where like the 10th house versus Capricorn. Capricorn is the desire to do a great work, where the 10th house is our actual showing up and doing the like what that tongue tied. Um, that that 10th house is where we demonstrate our great work. It tells us what our legacy is likely to be, what our status in the public realm is likely to be, what our what our great work is likely to look like. And it's a behavior versus a personality. So personality is more energetic, it's more happening on the inside, it's the vibe that you're giving off. The house is where the boots meet the ground and the actual activities are taking place. And I think as we go through each of these archetypes, so for the signs, the planets, and the houses, that will become more clear. And all for this entire reason, I am not going to lump Taurus, Venus, and the second house all together. I am going to attempt to talk about each of them individually and the unique personality of each one of them. And again for Virgo, and again for Capricorn. So lots of videos to come. They'll be split out as much as I can to make it bite-sized and digestible. But moving on into kind of earth energy and why it's so important. This is again coming from the Book of Earth, and Steven Forrest's introduction starts with contemplating spirit and flesh. So he says, is this the ancient marriage or the ancient argument? And that question basically boils down into pursuits of the spirit often contradict with the flesh, and pursuits of the flesh often contradict with those of the spirit, that they're somewhat at odds with each other. Our spirit is expansive and limitless. Our body could not be more defined and limited. So the two are inherently very different. And yet, as humans, our entire existence is a practice run in trying to bring spirit and flesh together harmoniously, and create some type of successful outcome, however we each individually would define that. Sometimes it's raising a family, sometimes it's building an empire, sometimes it's learning to play the violin and, entertaining millions of people around the world. Every single person has a different idea of what a successful, great work should look like. And as long as you're pursuing your own idea of that, you should be good to go. But rarely is that the case, because when we're in the spirit realm, it's basically the golden city of perfection. In our imagination, we can imagine everything perfectly. We set our sights, we create our vision, we have our dreams, we have our goals, and those are created in this realm of the spirit in our internal imagination, basically. And then meeting those goals or achieving those dreams, that happens in the physical. So trying to bring that golden city of perfection into the physical and make it real, give birth to a real manifested golden city of perfection. And that is kind of this ancient path of coming forward and living a human life, is that you're trying to do that. Your spirit has a reason. Your spirit had a reason for coming, and your flesh has the responsibility and the duty and the, being the only capable one in that equation of making it happen for real. So the body is who carries that out, while the spirit has all the vision, all the desire, all the passion in the world. It's still up to the body to compromise with reality and make it happen. Time is not limitless. Time is very finite, and financial resources are finite. And all of those things are limitations that we face as humans. We want to create all of these big, beautiful things, and we can, but in the earth realm, in order to create them, we will have to prioritize. We'll have to choose, what is it that we want most to create, and what are the things that we're going to let go of so that we can create this most important thing. So working that out so that the vision is realistic and attainable in the earth realm, that's finding that balance. And again, he goes back and forth in some detail of, like, is it a marriage, like they're supporting each other? Because without the flesh, the spirit can't manifest things in the physical. Like that happens through physical beings. So the flesh is absolutely necessary, but it also maybe gets in the way or detracts from what the spirit is trying to do. The flesh has an idea of its own. The flesh has its own agenda of what it wants to do, how often it wants to eat and sleep and have sex and all kinds of things. The flesh has its own agenda. So getting them to work on the same page is not always an easy feat, but something that's absolutely required if we are going to create anything in the physical realm. And that perfection, while it can drive us to reach for new things and big creations, big dreams, it is also a lot of the times the enemy of good enough. That, when we are reaching for perfection, that's really not even possible in the earth realm. And if that's our standard of, we're only willing to settle for perfection, in reality, we will be severely disappointed for the rest of our lives. If we're not ever able to connect into the idea of good enough, there's a lot that can't happen in terms of inner stillness, inner peace, being proud of yourself, having self respect. If you constantly fall into the trap of, I'm not perfect enough, I mean, which is not even actually attainable in real life, um, we deprive ourselves of the peace that is natural to us, the happiness and the health that is natural to us, when we strive for perfection that isn't even attainable. And this is a quote that he shares, is, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. And that's somewhat true. like you survived. That's worth a lot. And that is on some level good enough. But as far as like if you're going to be a commercial airline pilot and being flying thousands of people every year, maybe you need a higher standard for good enough. Maybe, you're not trying to be perfect, but you are going to need to be better than that. And I think that's where defining good enough is, it's again a very personal process and something that we each have to work through ourselves. And again, it comes back to a balance point of, yes, you want to reach and you don't want to settle for mediocre. You want to strive for excellence and do what your soul came here to do. But at the same time, giving yourself grace and loving yourself through that process of never reaching the standard of perfection, you understand that that's okay. And I did my best, and therefore it is good enough. And to find that relationship with good enough is such a powerful boost in this realm of earth energy, where it can be so discouraging to never be good enough according to the vision that you have in your own mind. And if you're saying that you're not good enough, the universe has no choice but to reflect that to you. I'm going through a bit of that myself, where I'm seeing others reflecting that opinion of me and realizing that it's really inside of me. It's really like me still judging myself towards a standard of perfection that I hold in my mind, and I'm not measuring up. And then I'm manifesting other people's disappointment in me. And that seems so fitting here in terms of like, I am very much still working towards my own productive relationship with my idea of good enough. And I recognize the importance of doing that and the process that it is to undertake, and try to work towards letting yourself off the hook and having a kinder, gentler relationship with yourself, where you recognize that perfection is not possible and that simply doing your best is all you can really ever ask for. So, like any of the elements or any of the zodiacal archetypes, the earth energy comes with a light side and a dark side. There's a high frequency and there's a low frequency. And the light side, the high frequency, feels really, really, really amazing, no matter what energy or archetype we're talking about. And the dark side feels really rotten, again, no matter what archetype we're talking about. So when we look at the light side and dark side of earth energy as a whole, the light side, the good, the high frequency, the highest form expression of earth energy is that you are making spirit visible, like visible, tangible to physical senses of sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. You are making your soul, your connection to spirit, tangible and transforming spiritual energy into tangible goods, physical goods that have a three-dimensional reality. That is like literally magic in my book. Like turning your thoughts and your ideas into tangible things is not something to be underestimated or taken for granted. It is absolutely a superpower of epic proportions. And that is why we're here talking about earth energy, because it is so powerful to take something that's important to your spirit and turn it into something that exists in the physical world where anybody and everybody can get access to enjoying it for themselves. Um, we're also like on the high frequency side, we're making the ideal real. So taking that golden city of perfection inside your mind and manifesting those things in the physical. And that looks like continuous improvement. It looks like investing in building infrastructure that's going to serve us for the long term, making the quality of life better for yourself and for other people. All of those things are things that only happen when our earth energy is in balance and working with us. And if our earth energy is not in balance, if we are working against ourselves, we're falling into that dark side of earth energy. It looks like being blocked by the fuss of real life. And I use the word fuss intentionally because real life has a lot of details to manage. Like think about even just for your body. Like, you need a certain amount of water in a day, you need food, You're going to need to go to the bathroom some, probably most days you're going to take a shower, on and on and on. That's a lot of details to manage in one day. And all you've done is the bare minimum maintenance on your physical vessel. So, not to mention having a job and paying bills and finding housing and making sure that there's food in the fridge and and that's again, not even expanding out into taking care of anyone else. That's just caring for yourself. So, if you have kids, if you have pets, if you have partners, if you have businesses, all of these details that have to be managed can stand in the way of connecting to our spirit and even having a reason why we're trying to make our spirit visible in the first place. The the power of earth energy is to make spirit visible. So if we're so busy running on a physical hamster wheel of managing the earth details, we're no longer connected to spirit and we're no longer bringing spirit forward. So we're missing the whole point of earth energy. Basically, bottom line, the dark side of earth energy is that you're overly practical. And especially if you're, I was born and raised in the US, and practicality is a praised characteristic. It is one of those things that everybody wants. And if you have it, you're boasting about it because it's really good to be practical. And basically, what I'm saying is that you can be overly practical. You can stand in your own way. You can cut yourself off from inspiration that would yield dividends like what you can't imagine if you would connect in with your spirit. But people don't have time for that. They're so busy chasing those earth details that they forget all about the whole point of earth energy is to bring forth your spirit. So if you're not making time for your spirit, kind of missing the point there. So that's a little TED talk. Thank you for coming. Basically, the earth is a spiritual playground. We came here to manifest spirituality into the physical realm. We came here to turn our thoughts into things. And we get kind of hung up, or we can get distracted by the things and forget that spirit is who chose to come here. And if you came, like we established at the very beginning, we chose our starting point. We chose the planets and their placements in our natal chart down to the penny, down to the very last detail. So if you're carrying a lot of earth planets in your chart, basically that's like making an agreement with the universe that you are here to make a mark on this world. And that's not something to be taken lightly. With great power comes great responsibility. And that's where getting into the three earth signs and their families, their houses and their planets, where it's going to start to become even more clear how that bridge between the spirit and the earth realm actually takes shape. So when we look at the three earth signs, we have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And Taurus is where we're going to start. We always have to start with Taurus. These three earth signs, they work together on a team to bring your spirit into the physical. Each member of the team, however, plays its own unique role. So Taurus has a different job than Virgo, than Capricorn. And Taurus's job is to be mindful of your personal animal instincts, your personal inner animal. We as Homo sapiens, we are part of the animal kingdom, and our body knows things about how to survive. Um, oh, my brain just split off into a million different directions, which is kind of the opposite of Taurus. In Taurus, we are in stillness. We are surrendered to our animal instincts. We are totally present in the now moment, allowing our inner stillness to let us hear the quiet voice of our own animal instincts. And it is through that inner stillness, it is through that animal instinct that the light gets shined on the right path for each of us. It's something that we can try really hard to live up to somebody else's recipe of how to be successful in this life, but until we quiet down on the inside and we hear our own animal instinct pointing us in a certain direction, that's when we can apply ourselves to something that when we manifest it, it will be truly fulfilling. The work of manifesting it in itself will be fulfilling. It's when we climb the wrong mountain, it's when we invest our energy into things that aren't meant for us, that leads to burnout, it leads to resentment, it leads to just manifesting things that aren't ours. They just don't matter to us. And until we listen to our Taurus energy, we don't know for ourselves what matters to us. Those animal instincts lead the way. And if we're not making time to carve out time for those animal instincts, everything that Virgo is doing and everything that Capricorn is doing has the potential to be completely misguided. That an unguided missile, a very powerful resource, but completely misguided and potentially destructive instead of constructive if we're not first and foremost carving out that quiet time for ourselves to trust in ourselves that we are going in the right direction that truly matters and resonates with our animal level self. Once we have that, though, once we have a clear direction, the mountain that's worthy of us, right? Remember, in the physical realm, there's a million, maybe, again, not that many, total exaggeration. There's a lot of mountains on this planet, and as one human being, you'd be hard pressed to climb every single mountain on the planet. So, how do you decide which ones are worthy of your time and your energy, knowing that time and energy are finite? And that Taurus knowing of which are the right mountains to climb fuels Virgo and Capricorn perfectly. They have everything else that's needed to get there. One of the quotes that he introduces in the book is, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And this illustrates that perfectly. Taurus is that 1%. It's easy to think that 1% doesn't matter that much because it's only 1%, but without the 1%, the 99% perspiration, you may very well get to the top of a mountain that you really thought you needed to climb, only to get to the top and realize this is so not satisfying. This is not at all what I thought it was going to be. I'm very disappointed because I thought that I was going to get XYZ when I got up here, and that's not waiting for me up here. You know, like, I think most of us probably resonate with the experience of climbing the wrong mountain. And the truth is that 1% of inspiration from Taurus and the quiet time and knowing yourself and being connected to yourself, it matters a lot. And once you have that, Virgo is taking it and basically breaking it down into all the details. Virgo is that technical know-how that gets the job done. And not only gets it done, but gets it done to a very high standard of excellence. More about all of these in their own deep dive videos. But with that technical know-how, now you have a direction and you technically know how to get to the end. You've plotted out the course, you've bought all the tools, you've booked all the flights, you've made all the arrangements, you've learned all the things, you're ready. And Capricorn is basically the driving force behind this entire process, because Capricorn is that underlying foundation that says, yes, I will do a great work in my life. Whatever that looks like, whether it's raising a family, building a business, being an end of care or end of life care nurse, or assisting people with breaking drug addictions, or there are so many ways in this world to do great work. It's such a personal definition that really, through our own internal contemplation, that's the only way that we can ever know, through that internal quiet time of Taurus and our animal instincts. That's how we know what is our personal great work. But Capricorn, what, come hell or high water, Capricorn will be doing great work, whether Taurus figures out what that's supposed to be or not. And that's where Capricorn especially can be such a devastating force when not connected to spirit. Because Capricorn is all out determined. Like, Capricorn energy left unchecked will die climbing the mountain, because it doesn't stop for rest, it doesn't stop for food, it doesn't stop for anything short of meeting its goal. And you can see That's that's clearly not the energy we're meant to live in 24/7 because that model doesn't last very long. We work until we die and now it's over. It's Taurus energy constantly going back to refuel, to eat and to sleep and to rest and to get quiet inside of ourselves. That is the lifeblood that we need to continue our trek up the mountain and actually make it to the top. So that's where the three members of the earth signs, they each have their own role to play. And in that mountain climbing metaphor, Taurus is naming the right mountain that's worthy of you. Virgo studies mountain climbing, gathers the right tools, gets organized for the adventure, figures out all of the details, gets the checklist, checks off everything, goes back over it, makes double check the checklist. That's Virgo. You're ready. You're totally ready. You can say with total confidence, it's good to go. And then you have Capricorn, who is determined that you will climb a mountain, probably more than one in your lifetime, that will happen. It's that inner drive towards accomplishing your legacy. And depending on, how much energy you have in Capricorn or what's going on with your Saturn or what's happening in your 10th house, that determination to have a legacy may or may not be common in the things that you think about. It might be a smaller player in how your life unfolds, but this is kind of that unifying nature of archetypes where we all have Capricorn energy in us somewhere. We all have Saturn in our charts somewhere. We all have a 10th house. We all share a deep desire to do great work. And learning how to get in balance inside of ourselves so that we're not spinning our wheels, investing our finite energy into things that don't really matter for us. That's the beauty when we get our earth energy right, when we have ourselves in balance, we're now investing our energy into things that are lighting us up, into things that are lifting us up and evolving in positive directions and making positive ripple effects out into the world in the lives of other people. When we get our earth energy right, we aren't the only ones that benefit, the whole world benefits. And I am, I'm kind of at the front of the line as far as saying like that inner stillness and quiet of Taurus is boring and I don't want to do that. But I am coming around. I am getting there as far as it all starts in that inner stillness of letting ourselves be at peace inside of ourselves and doing whatever we need to make ourselves comfortable enough to get to that space of inner peace. And until we can do that, our earth energy is out of balance. And, I definitely haven't practiced that my whole life, but I am getting there now and super excited to share this earth energy information with you all. And like I said, I will continue on with the bite-sized videos, one topic at a time, and release those as they become available. And until next time, dear friends, you take good care of your Taurus self, your inner animal, and so will I.